I know. I said I was going to do another one in like a week or two after I did the first one, and then I said it again and again and again and again. Life's been crazy. And then even with my most recent one, the commission one for the Tiefling, I said I would be doing like another one within the following week because I had the footage, and just life is crazy right now. But some awesome news is that this is another commission piece for the same person for that had the Tiefling. So this is Patty, and this is if I remember correctly, it is a sea elf and a half orc mixture. If I mess that up, comment below because I'm gonna share the link when I'm done and this is uploaded and everything. But yeah, she's a barbarian. She's awesome. So this is the original one, and when I say original, you'll understand soon. The original one, we did the same deal. We went through Hero Forge, # not sponsored yet, hopefully. But no, we went through Hero Forge. It was the whole like, hey, pose your character, pick out the weapons, do the gear, do whatever you want them standing on sort of stuff. And I feel like that is such a smooth, easy way to create your character. And especially like in the past, maybe 4 years, 5 years? I can't remember how long Hero Forge has been around. But when I first started using it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to spend hours in here doing all the things and checking all the stuffs. And I get emails like, I think it's every month they put more stuff in and new stuff. And like, oh, here's more for this sort of theme. And it's just crazy how much customization they have in there. So even when it's little stuff and people are like, hey, I want to get a mini done. Like, what should I do? Where do I go? And that's honestly one of the first places I'll refer them if they have something very specific in mind. If they have something sort of basic, it's even good to go. Like, oh, I want a half-elf warrior. Boom. Create your half-elf warrior. Give it swords, give it axes, give it whatever you want, a polearm, whatever. Oh, I want a half-orc monk. Go ahead, go do the staff, do like wrapped fists or whatever. Like, it's there. If you want a tiefling warlock, it's there. Like, it's such an easy site to use too. Like, because I went to school for 3D and video editing and all that sort of stuff, like the whole jack of all, master of none situation. Because I went to school for that stuff, especially like when it comes down to like doing custom poses. Like, it's so cool to do custom poses in there. I have a couple custom poses I was showing them to some of the people at work. But yeah, it's such an easy way to create a mini, especially if it's something super specific to what you're looking for. And this was the client's girlfriend who came up with this character. And it's really cool. Like, she's super badass. She has 2 long swords. And I think one of them has an icy enchant and one of them has a fiery enchant. So I had to do like a little bit of glaze work on it to give it like the fiery sort of like not super like flame tongue effect, but when it was created on the website, it like faded from like an orangish to like down toward the tip. It was just silver, and then it was blue, and then it faded down to the tip, and it was just silver. So I was able to recreate that pretty good, I think. But you'll notice also that when I was doing this, as I was talking, you'll notice that I actually use a toothpick, and it's such a great tool to use. And it's one of the things that I picked up while I was watching other videos, watching other painters, and there's a couple different things it's really perfect for, but eyes specifically is just phenomenal, because it's like if your brush isn't perfectly pointed, if it's like you have a couple pieces sticking out to the left and you go to do an eye or a pupil or something like that, it can mess up real easy, and it sucks. It really sucks when that happens, because then it's the whole, do I wipe it off? Do I let it dry and paint over it? What do I do? Do I get a little bit of water in there to try to blend it or anything like that. So I found that using a toothpick is super handy to get those fine details. If you're doing like belt buckles or something like that, or you have like studded armor, you want to do the studs, it's just such a good, small, stupid little tool for that stuff. The other cool thing about the toothpick is you can just sharpen it a little bit with like an X-Acto knife or something like that. And there, look, you have a perfect point again. Like, it doesn't, and if it ever does dull, or you need it to be a certain size, you can cut it, and it's just, there's so much cool customization about that stuff. But, so I said that this was the original mini for this one. So, apparently, this barbarian has the enlarge ability, and the girl wanted a larger mini as well. So at the end of this video, when it's all said and done, like I said, this is the original, but I'll put up, like I do, the screenshot of the character creator versus what my final is. So you guys can always get an idea of like how close was it, like how good is he. So if you want a mini, you can contact me. You can hit me through comments here, and we can go into some DMs, PMs, whatever. But the end one for the photo is the large one, and the large one, I want to say, was the mini itself was maybe 3.5, almost 4 inches tall, but it occupied the large space for the character on hopefully their battle maps. So yeah, and I've talked to him, and it's awesome. It's awesome. They were both in love with their minis. So that's all worth it for me right there. The fact that it's the reaction. It's the reaction. And like, that's sort of why I mess with people sometimes. Because a long time ago, my mom would take me over to my aunt's house, and I always wanted to go over and play with my cousins, but my aunts and uncles would just mess with me. Just non-stop mess with me, and it was so bad where it got to a point where I would end up going to my mom and crying and be like, I want to go home, they don't love me anymore, like all they're doing is picking on me. And my mom told me that they wouldn't pick on you if they wouldn't love you, and I feel like that ruined it for a lot of girlfriends. But yeah, I think that ruined it for a lot of girlfriends, because I would mess with them, and sometimes it's like the kid with the toy that is bugging their brother or their sister, and you tell them to stop, but it's a little too late because they've messed with them for so long. They just keep going, and they keep poking that bear until it blows up. Oh man, yeah, that's me. That's me. Sometimes when I mess with somebody, it's hard for me to stop, and it gets real bad when we get to it at work. The office isn't the best place to mess with people, but it is fun to do like little pranks and tricks on them and stuff. The easiest one is just putting a post-it note under their mouse, because everything is the optic mouses now. It used to be taking the ball out of the mouse years and years and years ago. I don't know if I'm dating myself with that example, but it's the ball where you would lift up the mouse, you would twist it, and the ball would pop out, and then you put the thing back on it, you twist it, so when they go to move their mouse around, nothing happens, because the ball was the sensor for it. And nowadays, with everything being like the optic sort of stuff for the mouse, you just put a post-it note on the bottom. That's it. All you have to do is put a small post-it note on the bottom, or you can put, like, I've seen other people put like a Jeff Goldblum sticker and stuff like that on the bottom of people's mouses. So yeah, like just messing with people like that, or like just unplugging their keyboard so when they go to type it doesn't do anything. That's always fun. That's always fun. I messed with my brother-in-law, and him and I have been friends. We've known each other for I want to say close to 21 years now, maybe. It's been a while that we've known each other. But the one time I messed with him was when we would play World of Warcraft together. I went over to his place to just hang out, and he was one of those people, much like myself, who, when you're running from one place to another in almost any game, for anybody with like ADD or ADHD, I think, is just jumping. Just like as you're running, you just jump. It's just a thing that you do, and it's probably subconscious that you're just jumping or doing something. It's to distract you from that boring line that you have to walk to get from like point A to point B. And to mess with him the one time, I remapped his jump button to nothing. So, and his spacebar was always janky. Like, I don't know how his spacebar always got messed up on like every keyboard he ever owned, I feel. But it would get loose, so he would have to hit it really hard with his thumb to make it actually jump. And I went in, he like went to the bathroom or went upstairs to get a drink or some food or something like that. And I was just chilling downstairs waiting. And I went into the key bindings, I don't know why, just to mess with him. Went into the key bindings and just unbound his jump button. And he came back down, he put down his food or whatever, I think. I'm pretty sure he went up to get like a drink or something. But he came back, was sitting there, was going, like I said, to wherever it was to do either a quest or a login or something like, or a hand-in, not a login. But like, do a quest, do a hand-in, something like that. And he went to jump, and because his keyboard was just messed up, he kept hitting his spacebar harder and harder and harder until he literally stopped, looked over his shoulder, and I was like on the verge of just losing it. But as soon as he turned around and looked at me, I lost it. I started cracking up. He was like, "God damn it! What did you do this time? What did you do?" And it was just, I told him, I was like, I just unbound your jump button. That's it. It doesn't break the game. You can still play. But that was a good one. That was a good one. And like I said, sometimes it's simple pranks like that you can just do to mess with people. It's just the simple stuff. It's harmless. So you'll see me going back here again, doing some of the armor studs and some of the details on the boot. And you'll be able to see the details on the boot much more when I show that final picture. But there was a lot of, even though it was sort of a larger mini, it was on the large side already, it was still sort of difficult to get some of the details in there, especially with the boots, because it was like there were straps going across, but then there was like the tongue going vertical, and different colors were chosen for each of those things. So it looks like at first glance when I looked at it, I was like, oh, this will be easy. And then I started getting in there and started painting it and like really looking at all the details versus the photos that referenced like the colors that they wanted. And after I started looking at it, I was like, okay, this is an easy part. That's an easy part. Here's an easy part. And then I got to like the details section. I was like, oh, there's a lot of just like little itty bitty spots here. So on the original, like I said, this is the original. On the original mini, those were pretty tough. It wasn't the tattoo on the back of the head like the tiefling was. It was the little straps on the boots and like just the layering of how the belts were on this character. That sort of was, that took me a little bit to realize like, okay, this part is this color. Then when it goes around her waist here, it changes because it's a different type of belt. Like it was a little weird at first to look at it, but once I noticed it and realized like, okay, there's the flow of it and all that stuff. But it's good. The other cool thing that I've been doing lately is actually at work, where we have, and it's one of the coworkers that I've actually hosted a game for. I ran the new Spelljammer stuff for them. It was 3, then it was 4, then it turned into 5 really quick near the end of the campaign, sadly. That 5th person got gypped. I feel so bad still to this day. I feel bad because they missed effectively the last session, and we didn't know it was going to be the last session. But with how the characters interacted with like the big bad and stuff like that, like the entire last chapter or last section of the end chapter pretty much just got skipped over because of certain actions that happened. But I ran them through the Spelljammer stuff. It was cool. It had a very like Star Wars-y sort of vibe to it, I guess is a good way to put it. And it's not just because it's Spelljammer. It was because like they were on their home planet, and then some stuff happened. And then they hopped on a ship, and it was one of the ones that goes to outer space, and it was like mustering up the rebellion against the Empire sort of vibes. And I was telling them through the middle of it, I was like, I'm just not digging this. Like, it's not as, like, I don't know, it wasn't like it was bad, it just wasn't what I was expecting, I think. But once they told me, like, it has like a Star Wars vibe to it, I was like, yeah, okay. And we kept going with it, and we ended it. I was like, you know what, doing the Star Wars metaphor was good, because after I was in that mindset of, like, you're just going from place to place to place doing these stupid little things, it all did add up in the end. And I was like, okay, there was a little bit of a payoff there for the players, and I guess for the DM. But the one girl from that group, she started a work group, not to play, but it probably will go into actually playing, but just like letting people find out what D&D is, introducing people to D&D, like people who were curious, who don't know anybody else who plays D&D, but they want to play D&D, they want to find out what it is, they want to see what it's about. So she organized a bunch of meetings, and we meet usually every other week. And because I have DM experience under my belt, I'm going to be running them through a one-shot this coming, well, depending on when I publish this, it's going to be Wednesday the 11th is when I'm going to run them through the one-shot. It's a really cool one-shot. I practiced it with my old neighbors and their two daughters, and they loved it. Like, their two daughters thought it was the coolest thing because they never played before, and they're always curious about the stories. Like, when their mom and dad go home, they always ask about the story, like, what happened this time, what happened with this, what about that. So it's really cool that it's not just at the table that people are having the fun, it's them going home and being able to share it with their family. And I think that's so cool that their daughters are super into it as well, as much as they are. But yeah, so I ran this one shot, and it was sort of like you talk to an herbalist in town, and they say about there's this cactus and there's a blossoming flower, and it only blooms like once a year under a blue moon, and that's tonight, and they need one petal, because if you take any more than just one petal, it essentially like kills the plant or whatever. And then there's other people that are on the way to chase it, or not to chase it, but to get it, to chase you away, and they want to like uproot the whole thing. So it's pretty cool. So I was able to run that with inexperienced players, and they did awesome. It was like an hour and 20 minutes, maybe an hour and a half, I can't remember exactly. But then, because I ran it with them, I was able to run it in my main campaign because we had about, I think, an hour left, and I was like, okay, I can run it here because I know what the story is and stuff and just the little things. So I can run it here and test it and see how long does it take experienced players to do this. And it came out to be about 40 or 45 minutes, I think. So the cool thing was I have a window of how to manipulate combats or how to manipulate interactions. So dealing with the interactions or dealing with combats, I know if I should add a little bit, take away a little bit. So I have the ideas. So when I do go in this week to work and I do DM for some of the work people, it's going to be fun. It's going to be super easy. It's going to be super smooth. I've already done it twice, so it's not too terrible. And the music in the background, I let play a little bit extra in the beginning because it's the Heartbound soundtrack. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with Pirate Software on YouTube, but I love his videos. I love all his little shorts and stuff like that. And it's so cool because some of the stuff is just like weird stuff that makes you think, it's like, ooh, I don't like that. That's a weird thing. But then other stuff is just like motivational. It's really good. And that's honestly one of the reasons I got the soundtrack, is because he had a YouTube short talking about use our music. We'll never hit you for like any of the, what is it, DMCA, DCMA, whatever. they'll never hit you for that, because they're like, no, you can use it as long as it's not literally just the music, which obviously it's not. I'm talking over it, but it's such a cool thing to do, and I love stuff like that. So I was not even hesitant to buy the whole soundtrack. So that's what we're listening to today. But it looks like our time on Patty is coming to an end. I'm touching up a little bit of the bass because on the bass, I don't know, man. I have this color for sand, and it never turns out quite good. I don't know if it's just I don't shake it enough before I use it. It's just an overall like very liquidy paint that you have to just set it and forget it and just let it dry. I have no idea, but it's just I've tried to use it a handful of times now. It never turns out right, and that's why I sort of went over it with a different color as well to give a little bit more definition to it. But then I always go around with black and seal it up, make it nice, make it clean. But you can sort of see there on the top, you can see the blue and the orange if you want to rewind that back. You can see the blue and the orange on the swords. Those turned out really, really cool. She has cool tattoos on her. She has like red sort of highlights in her hair. So there's the final product. Let me know what you think. I did a little bit of creative or artistic licensing, making all the metal sort of the same color just for continuity. But let me know what you think. Don't forget, comment, like, subscribe. Catch y'all later.